another naive advertising man's question again. And this shows that engineers, medical people, scientific people have an obsession with solving the problems of reality. When actually most problems, once you reach a basic level of wealth in society, most problems are actually problems of perception. So I'll ask you another question. What on earth's wrong with placebos? They seem fantastic to me. They cost very little to develop. They work extraordinarily well. They have no side effects, or if they do, they're imaginary, so you can safely ignore them. So I was discussing this, and I actually went to the Marginal Revolution blog by Tyler Cowen. I don't know if anybody knows it. Someone was actually suggesting you could take this concept further and actually introduce placebo education. The point is that education doesn't actually work by teaching you things. It actually works by giving you the impression that you've had a very good education, which gives you an insane sense of unwarranted self-confidence, which then makes you very, very successful in later life. So, welcome to Oxford, ladies and gentlemen. Now, but actually the point of placebo education is interesting. How many problems of life can be solved actually by tinkering with perception, rather than that tedious, hard-working and messy business of actually trying to change reality? A great example from history. I've heard this attributed to several other kings, but doing a bit of historical research, it seems to be Frederick the Great. Frederick the Great of Prussia was very, very keen for the Germans to adopt the potato and to eat it, because he realized that if you had two sources of carbohydrate, wheat and potatoes, you get less price volatility in bread, and you get a far lower risk of famine, because you actually had two crops to fall back on, not one. The only problem is, potatoes, if you think about it, look pretty disgusting, and also 18th century Prussians ate very, very few vegetables, rather like contemporary Scottish people. And so actually, he tried making it compulsory. The Prussian peasantry said, we can't even get the dogs to eat these damn things. They're absolutely disgusting, they're good for nothing. There are even records of people being executed for refusing to grow potatoes. So he tried plan B. He tried the marketing solution, which is he declared the potato as a royal vegetable and none but the royal family could consume it. And he planted it in a royal potato patch with guards who had instructions to guard over it night and day, but with secret instructions not to guard it very well. Now, 18th century peasants know there's one pretty safe rule in life, which is if something's worth guarding, it's worth stealing. Before long, there was a massive underground potato growing operation in Germany. What he'd effectively done is he'd rebranded the potato. It was an absolute masterpiece. I told this story, and a gentleman from Turkey came up to me and said, very, very good marketer, Frederick the Great, but not a patch on Ataturk. He said, Ataturk, rather like Nicolas Sarkozy, was very keen to discourage the wearing of the veil in Turkey to modernize it. Now, boring people would have simply banned the veil, but that would have ended up with a lot of awful kickback and a hell of a lot of resistance. Ataturk was a lateral thinker. He made it compulsory for prostitutes to wear the veil. Now, I can't verify that fully, but it doesn't matter. There's your environmental problem solved, by the way, guys. All convicted child molesters have to drive a Porsche Cayenne. What Ataturk realized actually is two very fundamental things, which is that actually, first one, all value is actually relative. All value is perceived value. For those who don't speak Spanish, Juda Naranja is actually the Spanish. This is actually, it's not the dollar, it's actually the peso in Buenos Aires. A very clever Buenos Aires street vendors decided to practice price discrimination to the detriment of any passing gringo tourists. As an advertising man, I have to admire that. But the first thing is all value is subjective. Second point is that persuasion is often better than compulsion. These funny signs that flash your speed at you, some of the new ones on the bottom right now actually show a smiley face or a frowny face to act as a little emotional trigger. What's fascinating about these signs is they cost about 10% of the running cost of a conventional speed camera, but they prevent twice as many accidents. So the bizarre thing, which is baffling to conventional, classically trained economists, is that a weird little smiley face has a better effect on changing your behavior than the threat of £60 as a fine and 3 penalty points. Tiny little behavioral economics detail. In Italy, penalty points go backwards. You start with 12 and they take them away because they found that loss aversion is a more powerful influence on people's behavior. In Britain, we tend to feel, whoa, got another 3. Not so in Italy.